The xenobiology classroom at the Galactic Academy went quiet as Professor Vexitar brought in the containment unit. The enormous cage, built from sturdy Durasteel and vibrating with energy barriers, threw dark shadows over the amphitheater. Within a vast and shadowy expanse, something stirred uneasily. "Today, young scholars," the professor with scales spoke, his forked tongue flicking through the atmosphere, "prepared to encounter one of the most formidable predators in the universe, a Terran apex hunter." The diverse group of extraterrestrial students eagerly leaned forward in their seats. Crystalline Zephyrians chimed with unease, their translucent forms shimmering with tension. The insectoid Cricks clicked their mandibles in eager anticipation as the gas-form nebulans swirled more tightly within their containment suits. Just one student appeared to be indifferent to the presentation. Sarah Chen occupied the back row. Her dark eyes focused not on the cage, but on her datapad as she examined quantum mechanics equations. The 19-year-old human exchange student had gained a reputation for being exceptionally analytical, yet appeared to be unconcerned with the showmanship that frequently accompanied xenobiology demonstrations. "The specimen in front of you," Professor Vexitar went on, "is what Terrans refer to as a wolf. This specific being was taken from the northern regions of their native planet. Observe the predatory posture, the shrewd intellect reflected in those eyes, the sheer strength housed within that seemingly small build." The wolf, a large timber wolf adorned with silver-gray fur, leaned against the bars of its enclosure. Its yellow eyes scanned the classroom with an intensity that most beings would perceive as a barely restrained ferocity. A number of students recoiled instinctively. "Notice how it assesses each of you as possible targets," the professor remarked with a sense of scholarly indifference. "This is the culmination of thousands of years as the top predator on Earth. Even now, restrained and outnumbered, it displays no fear, only the icy precision of a predator." The wolf's gaze swept methodically through the lines of alien students, making each one flinch as those hunting eyes locked onto them. However, as the wolf's gaze swept to the rear of the classroom, an extraordinary event unfolded. Its ears, previously pressed flat against its skull in a show of defensive aggression, suddenly perked up. The stiff stance transformed into something completely different. The wolf moved closer to the edge of the cage nearest to Sarah, and to the utter astonishment of all those watching, started to whine. "Intriguing," Professor Vexitar murmured, his lizard-like features wrinkling in perplexity. "I haven't seen this kind of behavior before." For the first time, Sarah lifted her eyes from her datapad, locking her gaze with the wolf's. The creature's whimpering grew louder, and it started scratching at the cage door, its tail once held rigid and assertive, now wagging uncertainly. "Professor?" Sarah spoke softly, her voice resonating through the shocked stillness. "It may be worth re-evaluating your judgment." "Excuse me?" Vexitar turned his head in her direction, his elongated neck stretching a bit. Sarah stood, shutting her datapad with a gentle snap. "That doesn't resemble a top predator assessing its prey. That's a group animal, isolated from its kin, anxious and scared, striving to assert control in an unfamiliar setting." She descended the steps towards the cage, disregarding the collective gasp from her classmates. The wolf's restlessness grew, but not out of hostility, rather from a deep yearning for hope. "You perceive a murderer because that's the perspective you've been conditioned to adopt. However, I perceive something completely different." The wolf leaned against the cage wall nearest to her, whimpering and desperately pawing at the barrier. Its behavior was completely different from the methodical predatory evaluation the professor had outlined. "You miss home, don't you, kid?" Sarah murmured softly, and the wolf's ears perked up at the recognizable rhythm of human words. Professor Vexitar inched nearer, his devices scanning for energy signatures and analyzing behavioral patterns. "Not feasible. The containment protocols clearly outline." "Your containment protocols fail to consider the instincts of pack bonding," Sarah cut in. "Wolves cannot thrive as solitary hunters. They're social beings that rely on family groups for emotional and psychological support. This one does not display aggression.
He appears to be in a state of desperation. She faced the class. For the first time since the semester started, every alien student was captivated by her words. Are you curious about what sets humans apart? It's not due to our status as apex predators. We learned to coexist with them, to gain their loyalty, and form a pack. The wolf released a long, sorrowful howl that caused numerous students to shield their ears. However, Sarah moved nearer to the cage. We didn't take over Earth by being the mightiest. We achieved this by being the most strategic in forming partnerships, by understanding that even the most perilous beings could transform into allies if you grasped their true needs. Professor Vexitar's instruments detected extraordinary neurochemical shifts in the wolf. Stress hormones decreased significantly as bonding chemicals surged dramatically. The true lesson here, Sarah went on, speaking to the class while keeping her gaze on the wolf, isn't centered on human predatory instinct. It concerns the instincts of humans in groups. We observe other species and recognize potential family members rather than viewing them as prey. The wolf's whimpering had transformed into a sound that resembled conversation, soft huffs and low rumbles aimed directly at Sarah. "Professor," she said at last, facing Vexitar again, "if you truly wish to showcase true human nature, perhaps you should consider returning this wolf to his pack instead of using him as a tool to intimidate students. At this moment, his greatest fear is to die alone and be forgotten." The classroom was quiet for an extended period. Professor Vexitar gradually started entering commands into his control pad. "Maybe," he remarked with contemplation, "there are multiple lessons to take away from today." When the energy barriers deactivated and the cage door opened, the wolf remained still, not lunging forward to attack. Instead, he approached Sarah with a cautious optimism, like a being who had just been presented with something he believed was gone for good. In awe, the other students observed as the most feared predator in known space softly leaned his enormous head against the small human's hand, finally at rest. In that instant, they started to grasp what genuinely rendered humans perilous. It's not their potential for aggression, but their mysterious talent for transforming foes into kin.